In today's discussion, we picture a world where language was music and words were melodies. In this world, one element shaped the very essence of communication: the accent. Greek accents wove a symphony of meaning, enhancing the poetry and the performance of ancient Greek literature. In today's episode, we demystify Greek accents and make them simple and approachable. Welcome to this episode of Sneaky Greeky. I'm Jonathan. Today we're delving into the history of Greek accents, tracing their journey from inception to the modern day, and providing a brief overview of the rules around accentuation. Greek accents made their debut in the ancient world, where they were not merely punctuation marks, but musical tones that adorn the spoken language. They added a rhythmic flair to the words, enhancing the poetry and the performance of ancient Greek. As the Greek language evolved, so did the accents, from the musical tones of Homeric Greek to the pitch accents of Classical Greek, and finally the stress accent system of Kine. These accents transformed over time, adapting to the changing linguistic landscape. In the early days of ancient Greece, written records lacked accent marks, and the placement of accents relied on natural pitch of the speaker's voice. As the Greek alphabet developed, diacritical marks emerged, and during the classical period, from the 5th century to the 4th century BCE, we see the emergence of these diacritical marks first with the acute accent, and then the grave, and finally the circumflex. These marks, they indicated a pitch accent, signifying the rise and the fall of the voice of each syllable as it was pronounced. As time marched on, the Hellenistic period witnessed a significant transition in Greek accents. The pitch accent gradually transformed into a stress accent, emphasizing particular syllables within words, and this shift, occurring in the wake of Alexander the Great's conquest, brought about changes in pronunciation and phonetic patterns, setting the stage for the future of the Greek language. The Hellenistic period refers to the time following the death of Alexander the Great in 323 BCE until the Roman conquest of Egypt in 30 BCE. It was a period of significant cultural, political, and intellectual developments across the regions influenced by Hellenistic Greek culture. From 30 BCE to the 4th century CE, the type of Greek that was primarily written and used was known as Kine. Kine meaning common in Greek. It emerged as a simplified form of Classical Greek and became the lingua franca of the Eastern Mediterranean and beyond under the influence of the Hellenistic kingdoms and later the Roman Empire. Then in 330, we move into the Byzantine period, which spans from the 4th century to the fall of Constantinople in 1453 CE. The Byzantines left their mark on Greek accents. While not the inventors of accent marks, they contributed to a more complex system. In addition to the acute, grave, and circumflex accents of the classical period, new diacritical marks emerged. Notably, the rough and the smooth breathing marks made their appearance. They also created the coronis. The coronis, represented by the symbol, sort of an upside down circumflex, was a diacritical mark that was used in Byzantine Greek to indicate a contracted or shortened form of a word. It was placed above the final vowel of the contracted word. The coronis served to signal the elision or the omission of certain letters or syllables. They also created the apostrophos and the hypostrophos, which is these marks very similar to what we've just seen with the rough and the smooth breathing. But in this case, the apostrophos was placed after the omitted letter, while the hypostrophos was placed above it. And these marks helped indicate the contraction or the abbreviation of words. So the Byzantines, what they did was essentially aim to refine pronunciation and preserve the linguistic nuances of their cherished language. Now, in the modern era, which marks really 1453 to the present, Greek accents have undergone further transformation, and today the Greek language employs a simplified system with the acute and the grave accents taking center stage. The circumflex accent, which was once an integral part of Greek pronunciation, has fallen by the wayside. Modern Greek accent marks primarily serve to indicate the stress syllable within a word rather than focusing on pitch or tone. So, in essence, the evolution of Greek accents from the classical period to the present day demonstrates the dynamic nature of language. These marks have shaped the way that Greek has been spoken and understood throughout history. From the rise of pitch accents in classical Greek to the transition to stress accents in the Hellenistic period and the Byzantines' contributions, each era has left its own imprint. Now, accents can be a perplexing topic for students of ancient Greek, and they often lead to confusion or an incomplete understanding. And that's really the purpose of this episode, is here to shed light on the rules of accentuation in ancient Greek, just making it easier for you to grasp the essential aspect of this language. Now, to begin, if you're seeking a concise and helpful summary of Greek accents, one thing I would recommend is consulting Hansen and Quinn's work, Greek, an Intensive Course. And if you will go there, in particular, look at pages 6 through 8, you'll see their insights about accentuation. And if you want a very thorough exploration, you can look at Smyth's Grammar, is an excellent resource, and particularly the sections covering 149 to 170 as he delves into the intricacies of the Greek accent. Now, before we get into the rules of accent, it's essential to understand the length of vowels in Greek. And remember that when you learned the Greek alphabet, you were introduced to 7 vowels. You were introduced starting with alpha, epsilon, eta, iota, omicron, and upsilon, and omega. And according to the academic Erasmian model, 2 of these vowels, the epsilon and the omicron, are considered always short, and they're pronounced as and respectively in Erasmian. They take less time to say than their counterparts. On the other hand, eta and omega are always considered long and pronounced as a and o in Erasmian. Interestingly, these are long versions of and sounds produced by epsilon and omicron. Then we also have diphthongs. Diphthongs are combinations of 2 vowels forming one sound, and these diphthongs are always long. Now, here comes the exceptions. There's always going to be an exception. The diphthong omicron iota and alpha iota is always considered short. So here, if you just, this box right here is going to be our exception category. And they're always going to be considered short. So it's something to keep in mind that we'll look at a little bit later on. Will come into play. Now, let's just talk about the vowels that can be both long and short. And so you have this category of these vowels here. And these vowels are right in the middle. The vowels alpha, iota, and upsilon can take on either short or long durations. In their short form, they're pronounced as a, I, u, respectively. In their long form, they're pronounced as a, I, u. Now, in printed Greek, it can be challenging to tell the difference just by looking at them. But again, Hansen and Quinn will show you the long vowels by adding a macron, which is just simply a line above those vowels to mark those long durations. So that's a brief overview of the history of Greek accents and an intro into vowel quantity and length in Greek. In the next video, we will go over the basics of Greek accentuation. We'll look at the acute and the rules around that, the grave and the circumflex, and talk more about how these accents look in real life scenarios.